Masai Ujiri has been taking some serious heat over the past couple of days, and frankly, he really shouldn't be, as we've all been watching the playoffs, we've been all watching the postseason, and seeing the Indiana Pacers, the New York Knicks, really take it too in the Celtics, the Cavs, in these matchups where they were the underdogs. And even over the course of this season, a guy like Norman Powell has emerged into an all-star level caliber player over the course of the year. And because of all this, especially with these postseason runs, and dare I say, even Fred VanVleet having some solid stretches out there in the postseason, Masai Ujiri has been taking some heat online from some reporters and stuff about, hey, giving too much up or giving too many pieces away and tearing things down a little bit too soon for this Toronto Raptors team. However, I'm going to break down the nuances to the situation, and while, yes, it is very true that a lot of the guys that were on this Raptors team are really playing well in different areas, and there are some things that certainly Masai does deserve some criticism for, it is not his fault. He didn't just tear apart a championship-level team, a championship-level core. This is not what's happening. This is not the truth, despite the individual talents performing very, very well for their squad. So we're going to break down the latest developments, why Masai Ujiri's taking this heat, but frankly, why this is all very overstated out here on this front. So lots of stuff to break down in this video, but folks, you guys have been crushing it, hitting that subscribe button as of late. Again, our goal is to capture that flag this entire season, so we're doing our part. You're trying to build this community here at Raptors Digest. We get to 38,000 subscribers. The luck is going to get juiced. So make sure if you've been tuned into the daily Toronto Raptors coverage, you want to stay up to date with everything, hit that subscribe button because we're going to continue delivering you the latest on this Toronto Raptors news. But let's jump into it because frankly, it's not a novel thing for a lot of Raptors fans. Now, there's been a lot of criticism thrown the way. Back and forth opinions, criticism, positive takes regarding Masai Ujiri's handling over the past few seasons. You look at any comment section, you look at it, any Twitter thread, you look at any Reddit page. Basically, Masai Ujiri has supporters, defenders, and some people are just really disappointed in the decisions. And when the team isn't performing super well, we're in the middle of a rebuild, some people are very, very frustrated by it. But these tensions end up going up a lot higher once you get into a position where the guys that were formerly on your team, the Pascal Siakams of the world, and just the absolutely electric game for the New York Knicks last night against the Boston Celtics, OG Anunoby, they're playing at an elite level, out there at the forefront for their squads, both going up 2-0 on, the Celtics and the Cleveland Cavaliers, both respective teams, as coming in as the underdogs out there in those situations. So, Masai's been taking a little bit of heat in regards, hey, why'd you give up OG? Why, you put all those guys together out there on the roster? I mean, that team is nasty. That team is sick. However, and I'll take a look at the stats. I'll give the devil his due in terms of everything that's going on because Pascal, this season is a crucial piece why the Pacers are playing well. Of course, Halliburton's the 1A on that team, but Pascal, 18 points per game, 6 rebounds, 3 assists out there in the postseason run. But it's not that. That's just the main factor. Shooting 54% from the field and 44% from behind the three-point line, and playing remarkable defense, just really locked in on both sides of the court. Pascal Siakam has been phenomenal out there for the Pacers. I mean, we look at I won't bring up Fred's just yet. OG Anunoby, right, 17 points, shooting 39% from behind the three-point line, and really, we've known since he's been on the Toronto Raptors just the outstanding defense that him and Mikal Bridges have been able to play on guys like Jason Tatum, on guys like Jaylen Brown, and really have just put them in an absolute sort of, clamp cage or whatever you want to call it, because frankly, OG and Mikal Bridges out there on the wings, are phenomenal. And you look at that, and I've seen some people say, imagine, OG and a guy like Scottie Barnes out there on the wing, who Scottie is coming to his own on the defensive end. That's, what the New York Knicks are throwing out there. And I agree. And, I'm not saying that this stuff isn't, it wouldn't be nice to keep those guys around for whatever reasons, but heck, even I've seen some people, and I know I got touted as the Fred VanVleet defender out there amongst Raptors lads, but Fred VanVleet during the playoffs this year averaging 19 points per game, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, at 44% from the three-point line, so efficiency went up, still 42% from just the field in general, so 43%, sorry. It's not like the perfect player by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a guy that's playing well since he's left Toronto, and that's stuff that you look at, and Raptors fans are like, hey, we suck right now. We're losing. We're tanking. If we just had all these guys out here on the roster, why don't we, why don't we trade everyone and do all that stuff? Well, the reality is the Raptors didn't really have much of another choice to go in this direction because news came out when OG Anunoby was on the Toronto Raptors. He told his representatives that he wants a situation where he'll have greater ball handling and playmaking duties in advance of his upcoming contract talks. And basically, while all this was happening, OG Anunoby switched agents to CAA, so from Clutch Sports to CAA agency, which essentially had super close ties with the New York Knicks. Their president of basketball operations, GM, whatever his title is, his son was, an agent at CAA. Basically, all those guys that are out there in, the Knicks roster right now, they're CAA clients. So it's kind of a positioning. It's a power play to get himself, traded to the New York Knicks. Now, it ended up leading him. He was frustrated with his role there with the Knicks after the fact, and after they traded for Mikhail, so they had to overpay for him to stay. And that's one of the big factors. So OG Anunoby wanted out, and on top of it, he wanted a massive, massive contract. And the reality is, I love OG Anunoby to death. He's one of my favorite players in Toronto Raptors history. I just love his intensity in the defensive end, his cadence, all that type of stuff. And that's that's a lot of money for OG Anunoby. That's a lot of money for a guy that, yes, definitely provides as an all-star caliber player on the defensive end, but offensively can be limited at times, and frankly deals with a ton of injuries. And the Knicks fans have been dealing with that for stretches of their course. And we look at his stats overall, right? OG Anunoby, 18 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. While the defense is elite, $40+ million there as your centerpiece. When you have a guy like Karl-Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson already on the roster with you, heck, Mikal Bridges, and you could pay it, you're New York, you're whatever, then sure, then that all makes sense. But where the Raptors were at, if you tie that much money into OG Anunoby, it's going to be tough to sort of get different players out there in the mix. So it was just a really tough situation for Masai Ujiri to keep OG Anunoby out here on this group. And frankly, he got a steal of a trade out there for OG Anunoby. I think RJ Barrett coming back was a huge move. Getting that pick, then becoming Jonathan Mobo, and of course Immanuel Quickley, who has dealt with some injuries, but I think that's a great haul in return, especially what the Toronto Raptors needed for OG. So I'm not throwing Masai under the bus there for a trade like that. Pascal Siakam was the trade that I was more critical of, but in the same vein with OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam got a massive contract as well. Now, again, deserving, I think he is deserving of it, but if we look at the Toronto Raptors cap situation, right, was he that 1A for this team? Because, behind a Halliburton, he is the perfect complementary piece. We've seen him win a championship as a complementary piece for the Toronto Raptors. But in terms of his complementary skills with a guy like Scottie Barnes, I don't know if Pascal Siakam is that perfect piece. Now, he has improved as a three-point shooter even since he's been with the Pacers, so, maybe that floor spacing is there, but a lot of people have argued. The same way, like around Giannis, you want a Chris Middleton style of player in order to really unlock that style of play. Pascal Siakam isn't that crazy shot creator. He's a spot-up shooter improved in those areas. He can definitely get buckets, play defense and stuff, but isn't that shot creator type of star player that a guy like Ingram has. And while I was definitely frustrated by the Pascal Siakam trade when it initially happened, the fact that it ended up becoming Ochai Agbaji, Jacoby Walter, and then Brandon Ingram on top of it, that is some actual really crafty moves, crafty decision making by Masai Ujiri. Of course, Pascal Siakam make the argument as a better player than Brandon Ingram, especially just all-around performance. But in terms of complementariness on this Raptors roster here right now, I think Masai Ujiri did not make a wrong decision. Again, we do have to see Brandon Ingram, the injury situation, all that stuff are all factors to key in with the Ingram spot, in terms of how things are looking. And he is cheaper than Pascal Siakam, like he is on a lesser contract in the short term at least. So, you do have a bit more flexibility on that front. But I don't think that was a big fumble, big misstep by Masai Ujiri. And then on top of it, he was able to, and then, Fred VanVleet was, if we look at Fred VanVleet's stats over the course of the season, I don't think anyone would have been happy giving him like $40+ million per year to have 14 points per game, shoot under 35% from the three-point line, and under 33% from corner three. It's like, you wouldn't really want that from Fred as much as you love him, as much as a great run that he had with the Raptors is. That's us good. I think the only thing that warrants criticism is Norman Powell. The Gary Trent Jr. trade for Norman Powell is just undoubtedly a dud at this point. I was frustrated initially when it happened. I got swayed, I think as a lot of Raptors fans did, with Gary Trent Jr. for stretches, because he did have high potential, so I'm not saying this is a brain-dead move by Masai. I see why it happened, because Gary Trent Jr. was younger. There were concerns about the contract, but Norman Powell did want to stay on the Toronto Raptors. He's averaging 22, 3, 2, 42% from the three-point line, and he was shooting 45% in his final stretch with the Toronto Raptors from the three-point line, so I don't know. I was disappointed when it happened. We all got a little taste of the Gary Trent Jr. bug and that it did go down, but Norman Powell was clearly the smarter piece to keep on the Toronto Raptors long term. But not saying Masai Ujiri is perfect, but doesn't warrant a lot of the criticism I've seen thrown the way of him online, despite the fact of these Raptors players performing well elsewhere. So that's kind of my take. Let me know what you guys think about all this in the comment section down below. I will say this. I am rooting heavy for the New York Knicks out there in that playoff series, just for our guy OG Anunoby. I also hate the Boston Celtics, so that reason too. And of course, Pascal Siakam with all the Canadians with Mathurin, as well as Andrew Nembhard out there on the Pacers, rooting for them heavy out there in the Eastern Conference. So, rooting for our Raptors. Not disappointed in sort of the moves that the Raptors made. Of course, we'll have a better idea in hindsight, 2-3 years, how everything shakes out as we get these young guys developing and stuff. But wanted to come out and make a little defense video of Masai Ujiri after a few of the criticism I seen thrown his way, over the course of the, former Toronto Raptors players playing really well. But let me know what you guys think about all this in the comment section down below. You guys are the best. I'm signing out. Cheers.